The 2022-2023 season has the potential to be one of the greatest seasons in NBA history. The amount of sheer talent combined with just how many teams have incredibly deep, even championship contending rosters. When it's all said and done, this could be one of the most competitive, jaw-dropping seasons the league has ever seen. I really want to get this video out before the start of the season, so this might be a little all over the place, and there's honestly too much to go through in a reasonable amount of time, but we're just going to get started and see what happens. So much to say, let's not waste time. Going in no particular order, I want to start this video off by talking about the Pelicans, who are looking like they're about to be a really strong team and one of the most talented in the league. Riding off the high of an extremely impressive series versus the Suns, they're also getting back their superstar. Zion's healthy again, and he's looking like he's in the best shape he's been in since he entered the league. If he comes back and is able to be even somewhere close to his 27 points and 7 rebounds on 61% from the field, then alongside with Brandon Ingram, who's been living inside of the lab, my man hasn't seen a barber in months, and CJ McCollum, the Pelicans have themselves a really strong big three. They also have pieces like Jonas Valanciunas, Jose Alvarado, Herb Jones, Dyson Daniels, and Jackson Hayes. Guys with great size and good versatility. I think they could be a top 4-5 seed in the West for sure. Staying in the West, let's go to LA. But sorry, Bron, fuck the Lakers. I don't really care what you guys are doing. You haven't made any moves that tell me you're serious about doing whatever you can to get back into a winning position. So best case scenario, you stay healthy and you make the playoffs. But to what end? Now the Clippers, on the other hand, still won 42 games last season, and that's with all the injuries and health issues they faced. Now they have Kawhi back, who's been hitting legs every day this offseason, and Paul George should fully be healthy after only playing 31 games last year. They acquired John Wall, who I really think is going to be good for them, operating with the second unit, sleeper 6-man of the year pick if all goes well. They have exceptional wing depth with Norman Powell, Robert Covington, Marcus Morris Sr., and even Nicholas Batum, and then pieces like Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard, and Ivica Zubac, who's a solid center. Overall, one of the deepest teams in the league, probably the most. I think they're a legitimate championship contender, and the third, maybe second, maybe best team in the West. I'm very excited for the Clippers this season. Moving on to the Atlanta Hawks, who are an interesting one. Trae Young is obviously that guy, and they've got Clint Capella, John Collins, Bogdanovich, Onyeka Okongwu, and a good-sized wing from this year's draft, AJ Griffin. But the basketball world seems split on how impactful they think DeJounte Murray will be. Some people think it's this league-shifting signing that's going to take them over the edge. Others are scoffing entirely at the idea of the Hawks really being that competitive. And as not brave as it is to say, I think it's somewhere in between. DeJounte Murray is definitely going to make Atlanta better. He's just adding to the already second-best offensive-rated team in the league, and is only starting to enter his prime now. But the duo created a defensively speaking lackluster backcourt. DeJounte Murray is going to have to prove that he can be as good as he was last year, and Trae's going to have to play more off ball if the pairing is going to work, because he had the 4th highest usage rate last season. So overall, the upside is super high, but I'm wary of this team's defensive liabilities. Okay, now the Denver Nuggets. Two-time MVP Jokic, the return of Michael Porter Jr., and Jamal Murray, the latter of whose health is not as concrete as of now. Solid pickups like KCP and Ish Smith also help build up the team's defensive prowess. Pieces like Aaron Gordon and DeAndre Jordan, Bones Highland year 2. The Nuggets have definitely improved since last season, and this is a top 3 team in the West if they stay healthy. The Milwaukee Bucks very well could have been in the finals last season. They won 7 games against the Celtics, and that was without Chris Middleton. If they were fully healthy, it's entirely possible that we're looking at Milwaukee trying to three-peat this year. Giannis is the best player in the NBA, and with Chris and Drew, that's probably the best big 3 in the league. They've also got a really solid team around them. They absolutely could win a championship, and I'm going to say they're going to be the number 1, maybe number 2 team in the East. Speaking of the other maybe number 1 seed in the East, the Philadelphia 76ers, who are one of the most stacked teams in the league. I think the answer of just how high their ceiling is lies with James Harden and how healthy he is this season. Is what we saw in the playoffs just him now, or is he going to bounce back with a bit more explosiveness, having more time since his injury? I think Joel Embiid is going to have another MVP caliber season. Admittedly, I don't know how long Embiid has left to do these things. He's a massive individual with a history of injuries who's been firing on all cylinders for the past couple of years. The Sixers got to make something happen while he's still so damn good. They got PJ Tucker from the Heat, which is huge. FYI, not really talking about the Heat in this one, but they will definitely not be as good as they were last year. And then Tyrese Maxey, who's only going to continue to get better and plays with so much heart and grit while the fans just love him. The Cleveland Cavaliers have gone and become one of the most interesting teams in the league. Evan Mobley showed flashes of talent that whispered generational defender incoming, and honestly, I think he should have won Rookie of the Year last season due to how genuine the level of impact he was having on the Caps was. I say that without throwing any shade to Scotty Barnes, by the way. I think Scotty is awesome and is also very deserving of the award. Darius Garland had an incredible breakout year and made his first All-Star team as well, and with the signing of Donovan Mitchell, that's just an insane backcourt, one of the best in the league. Karis LeVert could be a Sixth Man of the Year this season. Ricky Rubio, K Love, Jared Allen. I don't think this team is ready to compete for a championship quite yet, but they're built for years to come, and I think they'll be a top 6 seed in the East for sure. If Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons are all available, the sky's the limit on the Brooklyn Nets' potential. Kevin Durant is bound to be Kevin Durant, barring injury. I don't know what kind of impacts his trade standoff with the Nets front office this summer will have on his on-court performances, but if you have him, and Kyrie Irving is able to play the vast majority of the games this season, then honestly, for now, you don't need Ben Simmons to be more than he has been. If he contributes his playmaking and defensive capabilities, he's going to add so much to the Nets. He now has 2 of the most elite finishers the game has ever seen to dish the ball to, and they have Seth Curry and Joe Harris, who are 2 of the best 3-point shooters in the league. And then there are guys like Nick Claxton, Patty Mills, Royce O'Neal, and David Duke Jr. The team doesn't have the greatest depth, but if their go-to guys are reliable, then they'll be one of the strongest teams in the East, no doubt. Moving forward, the Minnesota Timberwolves have a lot to prove this season. The biggest thing I think is making their big 3 of Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and now Rudy Gobert work. More specifically, they have to prove that Rudy Gobert is going to mesh well, especially considering just how much they gave up to get him. He obviously improves the Timberwolves' lacking defense, but it's still in question whether he'll be able to fit offensively, and there's tons of spacing issues we run into when you have Cat and Gobert on the floor together. Outside of those 2, I'm super excited to see year 3 Anthony Edwards. In his rookie season, I was impressed by him, but was more high on LaMelo Ball, and since then, Ant has just continued to get better and better. This dude is a star in the making. He said something like give him another year, and he thinks he'll be in the conversation among the best in the league, and that kind of confidence, with what we've already seen, he could be terrifying within a couple of years. The Toronto Raptors are a damn good basketball team. They were the 5th seed last season, and even with the East getting deeper, I still think they're top 6. Scotty Barnes is incredible. I'm looking forward to seeing his improvements going into his sophomore season. I like Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet. They have Precious Achiuwa, who, I think has a shot at Sixth Man of the Year. I realize I've said that about 1,000 times this video, but they also got Otto Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr. They signed Bo fucking Cruz, for God's sake. This Toronto squad is sick. Going now into some less fun stuff, there's a lot of questions surrounding the Phoenix Suns. They severely underperformed through the entire playoffs, and then were embarrassed in a Game 7 against the Mavs. They fell apart in historic fashion, and things haven't looked promising since. One of their bigger problems now is the recent Robert Sarver stuff, which I'm not really going to get into, but the too long didn't read on it is he's a piece of shit who abused his power in the organization as owner, and now he's selling the Suns into Mercury. I think that's pretty soft on behalf of the NBA, but whatever. Point is, that's going to have a huge impact on how the organization functions internally, and whether or not they'll be able to make the right moves throughout the season while their owner's preoccupied trying to sell off the team. It's going to be a big question. Apart from even that, if you saw anything from their media day, well, wow. There wasn't a lot of enthusiasm going around, and everyone felt uncertain. DeAndre Ayton got his bag, but still seems slighted by the fact that it took so long for the Suns to give it to him. Chris Paul is still getting older, and it's hard to say whether or not 2021 was his best shot. He could have an injury and destroy the Suns' chances at remaining competitive. Also, Jay Crowder, who's been really good for them, is saying deuces, and they're trying to find him another team. They obviously had an incredible regular season last year, and Monty Williams is a super solid coach. They have Mikal Bridges, who's an amazing defender, finished top 3 last year in DPOY voting, Cam Johnson, and of course Devin Booker, who is good, obviously, but I just kind of feel like meh about him personally. I don't know, that's just me. Anyways, they could be a decently strong team in the West, but they could also fall apart fairly easy if I'm honest. Moving on to more teams and more questions, the biggest question around the Golden State Warriors obviously is, can they repeat? I think they're going to have a hard time doing so, even with all the immense talent from their developing young guys. The West is just going to be tougher than it was last season, plain and simple. The Warriors have always seemed like one of the most stable franchises in the league, but things have been shaken in a major way lately. The first thing to say is they have a massive salary cap issue. I'm not going to go into all the specifics, and honestly, I am still not super educated on the way salary caps and luxury taxes work in the NBA, but the point is they have several players up for extensions next year and not enough money to go around. As I was writing this, it was being reported that Jordan Poole was finalizing a 4-year, $140 million contract extension, and I think that it's a sign that the Warriors are committing to their younger guys. We'll have to see now what happens with a guy like Andrew Wiggins. And for the record, a couple hours after I wrote that, he finalized a 4-year, $109 million extension, so it's cuffing season, baby. The Warriors are all in on these guys. And then, of course, there's the positionless elephant in the room, which is Draymond Green and his future with the team. If you're not aware, Draymond Green sucker punched Jordan Poole and dropped his ass during team practice. And if you do know, then you've probably seen the footage, which was internally leaked. Now, me personally, I would not take that shit one bit. However, apparently Jordan Poole was being really annoying. I think it's kind of low of Draymond, who's a fucking vet and supposed to be the mature presence, to walk all the way over to him and wait to get pushed, and for Poole to instigate so he can unleash a haymaker. Draymond Green has talked a lot of shit in his day, but has never done something like this to even an opponent. It just makes him look like a chump, in my opinion, who's a lot of bark and very little bite. This is under no circumstances how you treat your teammate, your brother, your fellow champion, if you have any intentions on keeping that all-in culture alive. I don't know how this will affect the Warriors through the season, honestly, but the team doesn't seem as close-knit of a unit as before. They look promising in the preseason, but at some point, Golden State is really going to need to weigh Draymond's value, both with literal dollars and with on and off the court antics. The Knicks, my baby Knicks, they are going to be better than they were last year. I feel strongly about that as a Knicks fan. However, beyond that, I don't really know. Jalen Brunson is a good signing. Is it more than Jalen Brunson is worth? Yeah, I think so. But I, for one, am excited to have him on the Knicks. And him and RJ could be a really cool backcourt. And it's far from the worst thing the Knicks are doing. For one, someone needs to slap Tom Thibodeau's round, bald head and tell him that the young guys on the roster can actually hoop. I really like the young guys we have: Quentin Grimes, Quickly, Deuce McBride, Obi Toppin the GOAT, and RJ Barrett, who I honestly think is a cornerstone for the Knicks' future. I'm not saying Julius Randle is a bum or washed. I think he had a really good year, got a bag, then returned to his normal form, albeit a tad worse than even that. I think he'll bounce back a bit, probably not to the most improved player of the year level he was at, but if he can tighten up that efficiency and stop taking such bad shots, he won't be actively hurting the Knicks like he was in several games last season. There's also some really fun young teams in the league this season. The Magic have one of the weirder rosters out there, and even though they were dead last in the East this past season, and I don't expect much of an improvement, although I don't think they'll be 15th, a lot of their pieces can still be really fun to watch. They have the number 1 pick from the draft this year, Paolo Banchero, who I think will be the rookie of the year this season. He just seems like the most NBA ready guy coming out of that draft. He's going to be interesting to see as he gets more comfortable, especially because he's likely to have a leading position off rip. Also, Franz Wagner is crazy good, Cole Anthony is hilarious on social media, and Bol Bol might be one of my favorite players ever. My god, I hope that man gets some minutes. But in fairness, when he gets those minutes, he can't be slacking. OKC have a ton of really interesting pieces, and SGA and Josh Giddey are on their way to becoming stars in the league, and with Chet out for the whole season, there's a legitimate chance they end up with the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 draft. And then there's Detroit, with Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, Killian Hayes, and that pick that could have been ours, Jaden Ivey, who I really am interested to see play, along with seeing Cade's development into year 2. They got some really solid young guys who, if they develop right, could get them a lot in the future. And finally, just some other things worth noting before the start of the season are all the European players coming into this one off of playing in the Eurobasket and other competitions this summer. Giannis, Jokic, Luka. These dudes have not been taking much time off at all. They are primed and ready for this season. Speaking of which, we've seen Luka, who looks like he's in incredible condition for the start of the season, and along with that Christian Wood signing, I'm eager to see what kind of impact that has, given the Mavs were the 4th seed last season, and they didn't make any other significant moves while the West has only gotten stronger. Utah is entering into its rebuilding arc after trading away both its stars this offseason. It's going to be kind of fun to see Colin Sexton on this team though, because he'll probably just average like 25 to 28 points, which while it kind of means nothing, is cool for Colin Sexton because he got paid and gets the ball out. And then there's the tank for Victor Wembanyama, who's shaping up to be one of the best prospects, not just in his class or of his generation, but likely of all time. There's just never been this combination of size, skill, and fluidity. Victor said he attributes a lot of the way he moves to the fact that he's always been extremely tall, rather than hitting a growth spurt or growth spurts as he became a teenager or older, leaving him playing catch-up trying to acclimate to his size. Thus, he's had more time to adjust, and it's given him coordination that's unparalleled at his size. It also means a lot in the ways of not getting injured as much throughout his career. A lot of the issues arrive in guys his size because it's hard for them to move and gain coordination to the same degree as other NBA players, but Victor moves like he's nearly a foot shorter. This makes him even more enticing as a prospect, as you have a generational talent with all this upside and way less potential risk than you usually see from players like him. And I say like him lightly, because while big man who can shoot and dribble a bit isn't necessarily a new thing, there has never been a player like Victor Wembanyama. And holy shit, the point of all of this, who will end up the winner of the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes and egregiously tank this season in order to end up with a higher chance at receiving one of those 4 picks? Not that anyone other than Victor is going number 1, even though Scoot Henderson, I see you, you're a dog. Don't sleep on Scoot Henderson just because he's not Victor Wembanyama. I swear that'll be a mistake. Even with how tasty the prospect of tanking and getting Victor is, due to how strong and deep the league is this season, there are only about 4 or 5 teams by my estimate that I even think are in a position to tank, and that's the Pacers, Magic maybe, I don't know how good or impactful Paolo will actually be, and the Thunder and Rockets. You could add the Hornets into this, honestly. Miles is gone, and we're not sure if he'll come back at all, ever. If he's guilty, he obviously should not. LaMelo did a thing to his ankle, and they just haven't really done anything in the past 2 years. It might honestly be worth tanking. Also, I just found out they waived LiAngelo Ball. I'm fucking sick. And just before I started recording this video, it comes out that James Bouknight got arrested last night. What the fuck is going on in Charlotte? Okay, with all that being said and done, I was going to make a list of how I thought each conference would look, but given everything I just said, the league's going to be so competitive. Not only do I genuinely have no clue where I think some of these teams will end up, it's going to be so close in so many cases. I think that the difference of 1 to 2 games could mean several spots. That being said, I'll give some official predictions for the upcoming 2022-2023 season. For the Rookie of the Year, my pick is Paolo Banchero. For the Sixth Man of the Year, I've got Jordan Poole. For the Most Improved Player, I've got Tyrese Maxey. This would be Anthony Edwards, but he's just already really good, and he would have to explode into some 27, 28 plus a night kind of guy, which might just be a bit of a stretch for one off season. For the Defensive Player of the Year, I've got Rudy Gobert if the Timberwolves are good, and fuck it, Giannis if not. For the MVP of the league, I've got Luka Doncic. And the champions of the 2022-2023 season, I predict to be the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, that's all. Thanks for watching. Bye.